I'm Catherine Ivy. I have a little market garden, home garden called Ivy Patch Produce. And I'm going to mostly do some video clips from my 2021 season, but first just a little bit of background. So Tyler and I moved up to Wrangell, Alaska in the summer of 2009, and we came up on our boat from Washington State, and we lived on our boat for all those years. I planned on eventually having a market garden homestead type thing, but in the meantime, I had a little organic produce and grocery store, and I had some beds in the community garden. And then in the summer of 2015, we bought property that was within like just walking distance from Wrangell. But we had to kind of focus on building our little tiny house before we could get the garden started, which happened. I was actually able to get things started very late in the season in 2018. At that point, I only had like a 25-foot by 50-foot plot with one little greenhouse on it, and eventually I expanded that and was able to garden in about double the section in 2020 and another 10-foot by 20-foot greenhouse. I am expanding again and should be able to garden in that in 2023. I'd been shooting for eventually having a 1/4 acre garden, but I think it's going to be smaller than that. I think that's probably all I can handle by myself. In the first couple of years, I sold just a very little bit of stuff, just mostly like basil. And then in 2020, with the pandemic, I started delivering to homes, and I delivered to homes again in 2021. I'm gardening in a relatively dry area of our property, but it's Southeast Alaska. The ground is like a lot of tree and shrub roots. So I brought in some soil from elsewhere on the island and also some sand. And then I would go out and get seaweed to help with making some decent soil. In 2021, I was experimenting again to see how early I could get started. So in the future, when I have a much bigger tunnel, I would know when I could get produce to customers. Hoses are still frozen, so I probably will use the water in the buckets over here, which are still, they're still thawed out. Yeah, to water in the seeds that I want to plant in the greenhouse today. Some spinach, some radishes, more spinach in case I need it, and I brought a few little peas, and I'm ready to plant, folks. This soil is pretty dry, so it's gonna probably take a little. So I stuffed my finger down into the soil in that greenhouse bed, and it's just wetting the very top. It's not going down into the soil, so it's really dry. I'm gonna chunk up this snow, and dudes, it snowed inside the greenhouse. The little dusting of snow we were getting just stopped. I was looking at my lettuce, and I got little guys coming up. So I'm gonna put these guys under lights. I put my starts by the window inside the house, and this is my makeshift nursery in a corner of the house. Anyway, we shall see how they do. Okay, so I'm ready to pull the lettuces out and plant them out into the greenhouse. Okay, so I'm out in the greenhouse with my little flat of lettuce, and still a little surprised that nothing, well, why should I be surprised? It's been pretty cold, but nothing is coming up yet in the beds that I planted here. I got just enough to fill the bed. Okay, so I added some Agribon row cover, and I've actually got it doubled up. So it's 2 layers. I put some grooves in this bed to plant some seeds. And in this other bed, I took a look here, and there was a couple little sprouts coming up.
A foot strip of mustard greens, 6 feet of the palco spinach, 6 feet of the Corvera spinach, about 3 feet of speedy arugula, and then I'm going to do another mustard at the other end there.
Okay, so I've got a folded over sheet of Agribon row cover over both these beds. I used my little tiny soil block maker to make some tiny blocks to seed some red sweet crisp and green sweet crisp Salanova lettuce and some Italian kale. This is both old seed because this is just an experiment for the greenhouse. And all the little flats here ready to get seeded. Couple under the lights because I don't have room. Here I am, seeding flats of lettuce. So I was looking at the flats that I have up here at the house to germinate, and the green sweet crisp Salanova lettuce is popping up. So I need to get these guys out to the greenhouse onto that table. Okay, so I've got my flats of lettuce out here in the greenhouse, and these guys are going to grow in here until about the beginning of May, and then they will go out into the garden. This is my red sweet crisp Salanova lettuce, and they're popping out pretty good. Okay, so I suppose I had better get this parsley out to the greenhouse table too. Alrighty, so we got some little chard guys popping up, and Italian kale is popping up. I think we're turning a corner on this weather. Oakley dokley, we got all of the big flats out here. Another night and everybody's put to bed. It is 10 in the morning and the sun is almost fully covering the garden. I was in here in this greenhouse watering this morning, and then I moved into this greenhouse where I raked everything out and I put out the drip line, put some grooves in for seeds, and I've got my little mini block starts of Salanova lettuce and the very few Italian kale that popped up. So I'm gonna plant these out. And I know, the cucumbers are gonna be planted in the center of this bed, so it'll be super goofy going through to harvest lettuce, but that's what I'm rolling with. So this morning I got the little lettuce plugs planted into the greenhouse, and what I've been doing since then is in the fall, I got a bunch of seaweed. I didn't have room for it in the bins, so I put it out here onto the garden beds. And as soon as the sun came out, the birds got in here and started scraping it off the bed so they could get at all the bugs and stuff. So when it sits out here in the sun like this, it gets really, really dry. So I went ahead and just kind of scraped it a little bit more off the beds into the pathway, and I've been stomping. And then these back 2 rows, I think I'm gonna go ahead and do carrots. It's the north side, so they won't, shade anything out. And then in the front 2 rows here, I think I'm gonna go ahead and plant some baby chard and some orich, which is usually what I mix in with my lettuce as a little salad mix. So that's the plan. So I brought out my map for the year, and there are just 4 beds where I'll be direct seeding. Baby chard, spinach, carrot, beet, carrot. Everything else is transplants. So I just need to prep 1, 2, 3, 4 beds here. I was tempted to just go ahead and till everything out here, which would probably be the smartest thing to do. But I really want this seaweed, just underneath the surface of the soil. With the places that I'm going to be transplanting, it doesn't really matter. The crunched up seaweed can kind of probably be like a mulch. But for these ones where I'm direct seeding, I want a really good, clean bed so that I can run the Jang seeder. So the birds are coming along the edge of my newly made beds, and wrecking the edges. And what I'm realizing is, I'm going to be putting some row cover over the top of these so they don't scratch the seeds once I put it in. And so I really should have, as soon as I formed the beds, I should have put the row cover over the top. So that's what I'm gonna do. Alrighty, so I've got this thrips insect barrier down. It's got a good mesh to let the water in and stuff. So I've almost got this bed done. I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm digging down a little bit. I'm going through this pathway and I'm scooping up all of the seaweed. Then I'm just kind of spreading this out even. Whee! I've got all 4 beds done. This last end here took me a while because I went subterranean. Cucumbers are going to go out into the greenhouse. Today and tomorrow there might be a few sun breaks and then it's supposed to kind of rain. So I'm just going to plant these cucumbers out. Done. And now we're going to hit this next row. And next up is basil. Is that everything for this week? I gotta start thinking about planting these guys out into the garden, maybe next week. Even though everything is all wet in this bed here, I want to plant out my lettuces. Birds have been out here rototilling, but I have not seen them as much. But to be safe, I want to definitely cover my lettuce. And so what I'm gonna do to prep this bed here is do it a little bit differently than I did these beds and put the seaweed just as a mulch on top. The problem is I bought this really groovy tool that I have been wanting to use and I've been wanting to have for so long, which is a gritter. So I don't know if you can kind of see this, but you can see the pattern where the edges, you know, where the plants will go. And that gritter made things a breeze, not having to measure out. Okay, so what I ended up doing was prepping these 3 beds right here, just the exact same way I did that first bed this morning. We got kale and chard and stuff going in here. Okay, I'm setting up my hose to go from my main hose to my drip line. This morning, I got the hose going. I've got this 4 hose connector, but these all go to the drip lines. The 4 drip lines in each of these beds. And so we've got the basil in here. The lettuce is still running in there. Starts that need to go out today. And then 2 more that run into here. I got each of these little hoses on quick connect fixtures here. I've got to plant out some chard in that far bed and then a couple of beds of kale. So yeah, that is a little fox sparrow and a little junco behind him. So the fox sparrows are still here, at least one of them. All right, before I plant out the rest of the bok choy, I'm gonna throw the agrabah row cover over these beds that I just planted, just so I can kind of have them done as it's kind of we keep getting showers. Got a couple of bok choy, and what I'm gonna do is put boards down here so that the slugs, once they're done eating, they'll go under here during the day, and then I can easily find them. If they're not just hiding the leaves. But I've got 2 on all of the bed ends. I planted out the cucumbers and they all died because I planted them up to their necks. I manhandled them. It got too cold and they didn't get enough water and they got too much water. What do I got? Cucumbers, 25. And these are the extra cucumbers that I had from the first batch. I am putting up the trellis finally for cucumbers. Alrighty, so it's all done. I watered them in really good today, but they're so tall. Okay, so we got all our little guys in place. I've got to get these last 3 beds prepped. I've got green onions and parsley that need to go out. I think I said already they needed to go out like a couple weeks ago. My second succession of lettuce plugs are ready to go out. So they're all planted. Kind of hard to see because they're so little. I'm at the end of the garden here with the garlic, and I've got my 2 tubs of green onions, 2 tubs of sad looking leeks. Oh, so little. And my parsley, curly and Italian. Parsley at the far end, leeks, green onions. All right, so last minute before it rains, I decided to put up the hoops so I can put the row cover over it before it gets to be kind of a muddy mess, sopping row cover situation. And so I'm using this 9-gauge wire that Tyler cut up into 6-foot lengths for me. These covers are for the root maggot fly, but also later in the season, I end up getting those cutworms. The person I call my #1 customer is just somebody who's really chill about, you know, like I don't have as much as I say I thought I had or whatever, and you know, he's kind of cool with that. So it's nice to be able to have somebody like that I can get stuff to, and I'm starting to have, which is way too much lettuce. Okay folks, so this is my first sale of the season. Just a little box, and I've got 3 bags of lettuce mix, which is Salanova lettuce, spinach, baby chard, and a little bit of orage. And then we have some overwintered curly parsley, an Italian parsley, and our little perennial mint pot, 1 bunch of radish, and a bunch of mature mustard greens. And that is it for this first batch. There's another little buddy right by the garden. So I'm gonna go ahead and plant out whatever little cucumbers I have. There he is, living in his new house. First time everything has seen sun out here in a long time. I also need to plant out my last succession of lettuce into this bed right here. Little tiny spindly legs. I'm gonna be cutting this lettuce here in the greenhouse, the Basil greenhouse. I kind of figured I had enough to get to the restaurant, the 3 pounds of lettuce mix to the restaurant this Friday, which is tomorrow. Okay, so this is my big old 3-pound bag of lettuce mix with baby chard, red and green lettuce, and some orage in there. And then I've got my 3 little bags for my #1 customer. So yeah, I've got about, I don't know, 15 customers that I'm delivering to this week, plus my #1 customer and the restaurant. And so those are folks that I just, you know, I went out just to my own Facebook page because I've been trying to keep up, you know, my Facebook page through the winter so people continue to follow it. So I just went out to my Facebook page. I didn't go out to the larger Wrangle community group. I didn't share my post. And so said, hey guys, I'm going to be selling some stuff because I don't have a lot. I didn't want it to go out to a large group because I don't have very much, right? And then I also contacted people, you know, that bought stuff last year and said, hey, do you want to do this again this year? Here's a chest freezer converted to a refrigerator, and even before I've cut this lettuce out in the garden, I'm kind of topped off here. The stopgap measure for additional refrigeration is we ended up buying a second chest freezer. We already have an additional temperature controller to throw in there and turn it into a refrigerator. Kale and chard I'm going to harvest tomorrow. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this. So I've got the baby chard trimmed up. So I cut 12 heads of the green and 12 heads of the red. So this stuff that I got out of the garden is way nicer than the stuff in the greenhouse. I mean, as far as like the leaf is shorter, you know, so it's nice little baby leaf, and the red is a lot deeper color. So I wish that I had just harvested everything out of the garden today, but whatever. So here's something interesting. This is the wash station setup that Tyler is putting together, which is going to be beyond magnum. Bought the bags of lettuce mix stashed in this box here. There's 12 in this box, 12 in this box for a total of 24. And I've got the lettuce mix for the restaurant, the 3 pounds right there. And that leaves me a little bit of room there to stash some chard and kale that I need to harvest. Okay, so I'm out here in the garden. I need to harvest some kale and chard and some other things for my #1 customer, plus a couple of other people that need their stuff by noon. Most people I'm going to be able to deliver to 4 to 5 this afternoon. So I'm actually going to use a knife to cut these plants because I'm just a little bit worried their stems are a little delicate still. I didn't really advertise, you know, because I wasn't sure how much I could get out of these beds. I probably already said that. So all of these bok choy are looking pretty nice. These guys are looking super wilty. See, everybody's nice. Wiltiness. Root maggot. Checking out the new fridge. What are you doing? Oh my gosh. Got the second refrigerator, chest freezer converted to a refrigerator here. Okay, you guys, so here is the new wash station. I have carrots and beets ready this week. Yay. These are my beets. Carrots. I have lots of carrots. Alrighty, so I got my green onions and threw them on the top of my carrots. So it is slug o'clock in the morning. I got my 9 bunches, my 3 ounces. Good timing. It just started raining. We have, like I said, we have not had pretty much any sun at all, and I'm really actually surprised how well these guys are hanging in there. So I had to restart cucumbers, and they're just loaded with little guys. So since this is going to be my last week that I'll be getting produce to all of my customers, it's the end of August, I thought I would do a video about kind of how I do the ordering, prepping, delivering. I had planned to do kind of like a formal ordering system through a website, but I didn't get to it. And so what I ended up doing kind of the last minute is deciding to just have a group text. So what I've been doing is I've got this counter space, spray down space here where I put my tubs of materials, you know, the lettuce, baby chard, and orich. And then I go ahead and dump them into the sink here where I have my greens bubbler. And then back here I have another counter space, spray down area. And I'm still using my orange little hand spinner to get the water out of the lettuce mix. And hopefully next year I'll have something mechanical. my refrigeration area. And so I've got all my loose lettuce mix in a tub here, and I've got a total of 3 tubs stacked on top of each other. And then over here I've got a couple of tubs full of carrots. Normally when I have more green onions, I also have green onions. Then I'll throw in like some green onions, you know, if I have cucumbers or some other things. Normally I don't have space, you know, for all my other things like my kale, my chard, when I'm harvesting parsley, if I have, you know, the basil and stuff like that. So I do have to harvest those the day of, which is Friday. I've been, I don't know, averaging about maybe 20 people per week. I'm delivering to 20 people this week. Some people are right next to each other, or they're picking up at the same place, and so it makes it easier. But so this is what I do. I go ahead and grab these tubs from the refrigerator and I throw them in the back here. So on this side I've got my tubs of lettuce mix. It goes 8 bags per tub. I've got 1, 2, and 3 tubs of lettuce mix plus 1 hiding around there somewhere. Here I've got the carrots. And so I got a couple of tubs of carrots. And then since I'm able to deliver to my restaurant and my #1 customer at noon, I can make some room. And so in this tub, I was able to put the chard. And then back here, I have my bunches of kale. And here, what are these? Oh, this is my cucumbers, bags of cucumbers. And over there, well, let's go take a look over here. I have my little bags of 1-ounce basil. And then today, as it may rain, I'm hoping it doesn't rain as I go out, but I got some garlic. He harvested a couple weeks ago, but I'm finally getting to putting those in little packs. They're little 8-ounce packs of about 4. And selling those for $5.95 per pack. And so I got a bunch of those along with my paper bags. So like sometimes I can put things straight into a cooler, but if not, I'll put the stuff in a paper bag. And I print out a little form of my order, and I've already made out like essentially a map of where I take stuff to. Usually it's the same every week, but sometimes I have a few new people. This week, last week, I actually have a couple of new people I'm delivering to. So then I just kind of list the names, and then I've got, you know, my orders set there. So I actually pick the orders when I am at the location, and either put it directly into a cooler or put it into a bag and handle it that way. Last delivery of the season. Okay, lettuce, carrot, cucumber, and I just leave it in the car here. So now I'm getting this stuff for these folks. Okay, I'm just put this one right here. Oh. So I just leave this in the front door. And, all right, she had credit, so she doesn't have any payment. I just pick up my bag. Okay, so the last stop, I was able to get 2 families at once. And this, I have payment inside here. So I got everything stashed inside there, and then I usually I always send a text when I leave something in a cooler. Okay, so this is a situation where the cooler is too small for everything, so I'm just gonna go ahead and fit what I can in here, things in bags that the ravens might get to, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and leave everything in the bag here and give them a text. Okay, so another situation where I was like, okay, multiple coolers, but this one has a little thank you, Catherine, on it. So that's cool. It's just a little after 5, and I've just got a few more people left. Okay, these folks are right next to each other. Okay, so this one gets stuffed inside the cooler. Okay, everything fits in this little cooler. Perfect. Headed back that direction. Done, 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 done. Done. In 2021, I ended up making about $5,000 in sales, and that was even with my crappy basil and cucumber season. I also had a few $1,000s in personal use produce, but I'm still calculating that number because I did some overwintering experiments with carrots and leeks, and we are still eating carrots out of the garden in February.